Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I am Julie Shore, President of Career Development Advisors, and this is Chrissy Souters, my producer, and welcome to Next Step Wednesdays. Happy to be here. I don't know about you, Chrissy, but it's been pouring rain in Pennsylvania the last few days, so I would be jealous if you have sunshine.
Well, I'm in Florida, and right now it's hurricane season, and it's literally rained for like a month.
That's true. That's true. I forgot about that. Very true. Very true. So, if you're joining us for the first time, again, welcome. At Career Development Advisors, I work with organizations and individuals on all things related to career. So, I do recruiting or hiring on a retained basis for organizations. I also am passionate about teams working together as synergistically and efficiently and productively as they can. So, I do a lot of training around that. I'm a certified Colby consultant, and then I do outplacement and career transition for corporations, but also do career coaching with individuals. So, welcome. And every week, well, first of all, I am passionate about sharing valuable, actionable information that you can actually take and use. And so that's why we entitled this program every Wednesday at 11:30, Next Step Wednesdays. And so this month of September, I thought I would do something a little bit different in that we would share, and we're going to have a guest each week share their unique career path and career journey, because I think a lot of people, especially with COVID going on, are rethinking their careers, their jobs. If you were, for instance, an all in-person kind of worker and now you're forced to be remote, I think a lot of people are rethinking their roles and their career paths. And so I thought it would be fun. We're still going to have your 5 to do, so make sure you have your pen and pencil out afterwards. But we're going to get started by talking with Chrissy, my producer, because when I first met her, she had such a unique story. And I thought, we've got to share this to hopefully inspire those of you that are listening live or later to really take a step back and think. And we've done lots of programming before this on assessing your values and taking stock. Well, today you're going to hear how Chrissy did that and kind of what her journey and her path was. So thank you, Chrissy, for being the first one this month. And we are going to feature folks in completely different careers, completely different journeys over the coming weeks. So I'm super excited about that. So to get us started, Chrissy, would you share with us a little bit about your background, kind of how you decided on a major, where you went to school, and we'll kind of start from there.
Okay, so in high school, which was centuries ago, I found my passion in broadcast journalism in doing the morning, just basically when you watch to see what's happening during the day at school. So I started to do those programmings in high school, and it was called Channel One. And then in high school, everyone referred to me as the Channel One girl. And so I did that throughout high school, and I got a real job actually right out of high school because I took a gap year, I guess you could say. But also I went to community college because I was paying for my own school. And in community college, it's very far and few between for you to be able to choose a major. So I was getting my gen eds out of the way at a lower price point. And then I went into university for 2 years after that to pursue broadcast journalism. And my aspirations in life was to become a news anchor and to share stories of people in my community, whatever community that may be, because you do a lot of transitions, a lot of contract to contract, different locations. So I moved around quite a bit in the country. So I lived in some far out places, some small towns. My first gig was in Wausau, Wisconsin. And then I was in Davenport, Iowa, Burlington, Vermont, and now I'm here in Tallahassee, Florida. So I've moved around quite a bit in my decade as a journalist, starting off as a overnight producer and weekend journalist. So I would be, sleeping during the day and then on the weekends switching gear and working during the day. which is not easy, I may add. And then, from there, I moved up the ladder per se, as a full-time reporter, journalist, multi-journalist, multimedia journalist. Whereas I was out in the field sharing stories, covering politics, hard-hitting stories, tragedies, all different types of content providing and making sure you got it on that day for the daily newscasts. And so it was very fast-paced environment, really no room for failure. And you had to be on every single day. And, when you're young, that's easy to do because you're young and bright and you're like, okay, yes, I'm doing my passion, and I'm, barely able to go to the bathroom or to eat my lunch. But I'm doing this because it's my duty. I'm a journalist. And so gradually I moved up as a full-time anchor, and I did the morning news. And as a morning news anchor, your day starts at midnight and you're working throughout the night to get on for the 5 a.m. broadcast, 5 to 7 a.m. And, you've got to look the part and make sure all the information is accurate and factual, and that you've vetted your sources and all the players are in place, like the reporter out on the scene, the weather anchor, the people behind the scenes, the producers, directors, all of that comes into play, especially when in my position, I was the lead news anchor, and, we didn't have management in there when I was there. So I was essentially managing the newsroom for 3 years.
That's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
Did you ever
absolutely.
sleep? Did you ever sleep? It doesn't sound like it.
It's so funny because during my time working the graveyard shift, I would tell myself, this is great. I feel good. I would tell myself, yeah, I can do this. This is great. I have the whole day to, catch up on sleep and just relax or go to the pool.
Right.
And it's so funny because when I left that environment, I thought to myself, man, was I really that delusional?
Wow.
Because I felt so different, after the fact. And it's just like I never felt better, once my departure from working that graveyard shift.
Did you yeah, I can't imagine. You must have drank a lot of coffee. Did you drink a lot of coffee?
I still do.
So, quick question, just in general, so obviously we've heard Chrissy was managing people, managing stories, up all the time. You always had to be on, right? How about just the content itself? Was that ever emotionally taxing or draining, or not so much? I'm just curious about that.
So I'm very empathetic. So yes, it was draining on me because, I feel tremendously. And so, yeah, if someone was murdered or if there was a shooting or someone was hurt, I wasn't that person that was experiencing that tragedy, but I was still experiencing it, not to the 100th degree, but I've experienced tragedy in my life in and of itself, and so I could place myself in those people's positions. And really, I mean, in the long run, yeah, it took a toll on me, but it made my storytelling so much more profound and significant. And, because I really had a duty to share that person's story. I mean, I was talking to them in their most vulnerable moments. They were opening up to me. And so I really held that to a big standard, and because it's their story. And at the end of the day, I know people will be watching, but really the only people I care about are the people in those stories. And if it translated well enough, and if I did it justice.
So do you have a clip that you could show everyone? If you don't, that's okay. We can post it later.
I mean, I have a million clips on my Christine Souters journalist YouTube channel. So if anyone ever wanted to dive into the archives, then yeah, go right ahead. But I'll just show a simple clip. I don't know if it's that gut-wrenching, like emotional story. But I actually, I became, and I'll kind of show you and explain how I dealt with the emotional impact in journalism. So here's just a quick, clip I'll show here.
Great.
Producing behind the scenes. And I'm going to mute us briefly.
A mandatory evacuation has been issued for many low-lying areas in Wakulla County ahead of Hurricane Michael. Arjita Williams joins us live this morning with a look at how some people in Panacea are choosing to ride out the storm that's against advice of authorities. Good morning, Jada.
Good morning, Malcolm. Good morning, Christine. There are some people that are quite a bit away from me down the road who are choosing to stay in their homes and their shops here in St. Mark's, as well as the people living in.
As you see, it's getting closer. What's the very latest?
It's a 90 mile per hour. Weeks maybe to really shake this one off. This was a rough one, but in good news, the weather pattern is going to be a little more tranquil.
Okay.
Overall.
I like that word, tranquil.
Yeah, I really think it's necessary to really stress that.
Stay off the roads, at least until it clears.
Yes. So you can see my hair was a lot more blonde and
so Christine and
style,
that's right.
Haircut and all of that good stuff.
So you go by Chrissy now. Your newscaster name was Christine. So what was a pivotal point? Because I don't know if people know, we'll get to it. I know, what you do now. What was a pivotal point, or what made you kind of rethink your career and make the change to what you're doing now?
Well, as I stated, I moved around a lot during my career, and I could never be stationary for more than 2 years. And I really, I collected lots of great friends and people and experiences in my life. But I knew when I made my move to Florida that, I really wanted to lay down some roots and make this my home, because half my family migrated down here from the Midwest. And so I was getting closer to family. And it's interesting that you bring that up, because during my time as a journalist, you are out there collecting stories and pitching those stories day in and day out. And so I found myself really mentally and physically finding that there is a tax that you pay as far as when it comes to your mental health and physical health. And so I started utilizing, well, what can I do to make the day less about, the doom and gloom? And so I started pitching good news stories, and I made it, I was like, people want to see this. People they want to watch good feeling news. And so I ended up coming up with a segment called Difference Makers, where we featured people making a difference in our communities on a monthly basis. And that was kind of my jam. And people knew me as the good news journalist, and felt really good about that. And I still feel like I'm a good news journalist, because once a journalist, always a journalist. But I have to say, as far as reaching that moment that I'm like, okay, maybe I don't need to always be a news anchor. Maybe I don't want to be a journalist in local news all my life. I did this for 10 years. And for me, I think a lot of it had to do with a couple of things. So I think it had to do with the political environment. Also, I had to do with how we were perceived by people. Also, not just, when it comes to politics, but also perceived by people when we are, showing up on the scene of a shooting, and, showing up and wanting to speak with someone in the most tragic moments of their lives and wanting to get a soundbite from them. And I've always looked at it as, I'm doing this because their story is important. It's important that people hear this story. And there are cases where that's at, but there are also cases where it's like, give them some room, give them some space, let them feel, let them go through this. Like, you don't need to put that on display on the news. And so that's really what a big turning point was for me, as someone who, my foundation is based on my integrity. I'm very much, I know who I am. I know what I bring to the table, and I know right from wrong. And so I think a big moment for me was, there's a lot of things that come into play when it comes to local news and who's paying the bills for local news and what their agenda is. And I just wasn't willing to sway, my integrity as a journalist. And so when we were taken over by a larger corporation, I knew that they didn't align with my morals and values. That's when I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make my exit. So that's what led me to pursue my other passions in life, because really as a news anchor, that's your identity. You walk into the grocery store and people, oh, there's Christine Souters, the news anchor. And I realized that I didn't want to be encapsulated and just have one identity. I have other passions. I have other things in life that I like to do. And so I found solace really in creating art. And I, from there, just kind of evolved. I was working with resin, which is tree sap. And I found people that, really liked it and wanted to purchase. And so I just continued on, and it became this massive, crazy beast of a business out of circumstances and accidents. And I was like, well, maybe it's time for me to pursue something else. And that's what I've been doing. Now I'm a full-time entrepreneur, business owner. And my business is called Kitschy Wearable Art. We collaborate with artists and individuals like yourselves to make custom jewelry and accessory pieces out of resin. And it's been a hard road. It's been a lot of hard work, but it's been so worth it.
So when did you discover your interest in art?
Yeah,
and your artistic side.
Conundrum, because I never, okay, so it's weird how I look at art, because I'm an artist, but it's interesting because my claim to be an artist comes from, from a different place. So it comes from, me as a person wanting to build something and be self-sufficient, not rely on the government, not rely on anyone else for a paycheck but myself. And my passion for art, literally one morning I was getting off of work at 8 a.m. I was delirious, tired, and I'm a very nostalgic person. And I was like, for some reason, zipper earrings popped in my head. And in the 80s, some people wore zipper earrings. And I was like, oh, I really want a pair of zipper earrings. And so I went on Amazon and I was just, couldn't go to sleep. I was like, I want to find a pair of zipper earrings, and I couldn't. And then I was like, oh, I'll just make zipper earrings. So I went to the craft store and I was looking for zippers. Come to find out, zippers don't come in pairs. You get the zipper and, it's like that. So like trying to pair for earrings, it was like this whole big thing. And then I found like, oh, you can get zippers for upholstery kind of, it was just like this whole like rabbit hole. And it's been one big rabbit hole. So it's been really solving problems one after another. And then that developed into resin and working with resin. So that's how I've become an artist per se, I guess you can say. But also I feel like I'm an artist because my entire life, people have told me that you'll never be able to do something original, truly original. You know what I mean? Things are copied from other things, copied and continuously copied, right? And I always had that, I guess that in the back of my head, I always just wanted to do something that was truly original. And then when I started making my resin jewelry, realizing that, we're really creating and inventing something that nobody else is doing, it was kind of a profound moment for me. It's like now I create original pieces every day. I collaborate with artists to put their art in wearable art. And it's just really been crazy, the response. And really, I mean, just there really isn't anyone doing what we're doing at Kitschy Wearable Art. And it's pretty fascinating.
So how do you find the artists to work with? Are you
Social
marketing to
media
them
is
or do they seek you out?
social media. So this is kind of the ebbs and flows of my business. I took to social media myself and just messaged hundreds and hundreds of artists every day, and that's also been a rabbit hole too, because when you're doing something crazy and different, it's kind of hard for them to conceptualize it and to really visualize it. And so I started connecting with artists on Instagram and Facebook. And, some people didn't really need to have a visual to understand what we're doing. And now we do offer, free samples to artists so that they can physically have it in their hand and see it and the quality of it. And from there, it's just, kind of taken off, because it's like once someone gets a piece of our wearable art in their hand, they're really sold because of the integrity and the quality of it.
That is amazing, Chrissy. So everyone listening, I love, my family cringes because anytime I go anywhere, I see everything through an employee lens, or what does someone do for their career or do for their job? And I love hearing stories of people's past, because there is not a straight line by any means for anyone. I always tell people when they approach me and say, "Oh, Julie, I don't know what I want to do. Can you help me out?" The first thing out of my mouth is, "I do not have a crystal ball. I do not have a crystal ball. I can't tell you what you should be or do or become." Statistically, people have, I think it's 11.4 jobs and 3 to 5 careers in a lifetime. And my next question for Chrissy is, so if you could go back, so you did this journalism thing for 10 years and now you're doing the art, and you're still somewhat involved in journalism, obviously running my, live streams for folks. But if you could go back in time, do you have regrets, or is there anything you would change?
I think I would change. Okay, so when I do something, I'm really like, I'm 100% in, right? So whenever I do something, I do it 100%. And I think what I would change is maybe not sticking to, I still would have become a journalist, because you're innately a journalist. That's just who you are. It's part of what you do, which is why I still do the hosting and live streaming for people. But I don't think I would have really, just kept myself stuck in this, mold of, you must be a news anchor, you must be on TV, you must be multi-journalist for local news because local news matters. I think I would have really maybe pursued other kind of social media news outlets and see what that takes. And I realized, I'm a tomboy and I hate wearing makeup. I hate it so much. And so it would have been nice to, not have to do all the superficial stuff and still be able to continue with the journalism. And so that's really what I'm doing with the live streaming, is sharing good news, helping businesses, nonprofits continue with their events that, were stopped because of COVID-19. I don't think I would change being a journalist, but I think I would have changed, who I worked for.
Mm-hmm. And so you bring up a couple good points I just want to comment on. When I'm working with folks and they say, "Oh, I don't know if I want to, stay in this job or this career," a huge part of it is discerning what Chrissy just mentioned is, was it the job itself or was it the environment you were in? And the minute your personal values, as Chrissy mentioned, are compromised, if you've been feeling this nudge for a while, like, I just don't know if this is the right place, but you're a loyal individual. I've worked with a lot of folks too, who just feel like, for whatever reason, societal pressures, family pressures, you're just typically a loyal individual that you have to stay in place in the same company for umpteen years or follow a traditional career path. That is so not the way it is anymore. And of course, we could have a whole other second show on debating the pros and cons of that. But the point being, I think a lot of it is a mindset issue we self-impose on ourselves, whether it's my entire family, are Harvard grads and I have to go to Harvard, or I have to climb that career ladder, like you've said, those steps to really show your progression in news media and journalism. I also want to comment on something you said very early on is, you took some of your, general education classes at a community college. I also think that we're finally kind of busting through that traditional path of, I don't think 4-year schooling is the answer for every single person. And I think, and it's near and dear to my heart right now because I have teenagers who are encroaching upon that age where you have to discern, is college right? Is a 4-year program right? What's right? And I think we owe it to ourselves as individuals, as parents, as friends, as coaches, whatever it might be, to really explore what's the best path. And there's not one right way to go about it. And to really explore what those options are. And, so often we impose these limits of, yeah, but I can't do that, or yeah, but I can't do that. And I want to say, well, why not? And that's, one of the steps. So Chrissy, do you have, what would you say are sort of and I know we're getting close on time, I want to be mindful of that, but I just have 2 more questions for you that I think would benefit the people listening is, what would you say are sort of your top 2, have you discovered your top 2 values, whether it be at work and or personally for you?
You really hit it on the nail there, is I need to be in an environment where I don't have a lid or cap on what I can create and do. I just don't want to be in a bottle. I don't want to be trapped in a bottle. I want to be able to beat expectations and not have this is the ceiling, and once you hit that ceiling, there's nothing past that. So as for me, creativity and all of that, it's important that I place myself in a position where there is no cap to how well or how much I can succeed. When I left news, I became complacent because I did everything I wanted to do, right? And so if there wasn't something that I could do to up that or go past that, then I just really felt like, okay, I did it. I'm done. I'm good. You know what I mean? So for me, I want to be in an environment where there's no limit to how far I can go or succeed. And I think a lot of people should, and I think a lot of employers would benefit from that as well too. And my advice to employers out there is to, maybe not put a cap on people and how well they can, how far they can go.
And I think, so a couple of things. So the first step I was going to share was, this is the pen and paper time, guys, is, you really need to assess your values and what's important to you. And if your personal values, you heard Chrissy say her creativity, her integrity, her ability to achieve was really important to her. If any of that is stuck or not congruent in your current work environment, and you don't have the ability to influence or change that, you probably need to decide, I might need to take my skill set somewhere else. And a lot of organizations, and this is just, again, based upon my experience in coaching and consulting, a lot of organizations, the larger they are, the harder it is to move and shift thinking. And so if you're working for a really large organization, it's really hard to turn that cruise ship around. Versus if you're working for a smaller entrepreneurial mid-sized organization, you can often impact change or influence, and you don't have to wait for the next person in this next role up here to move for you to grow and learn. And so those are just some simple things to be thinking about, is that environment, has to be right. And so the 5 steps real quickly as we're closing here for you to really take into consideration after speaking with Chrissy is, you've got to assess your values. Write them down. What's important to you? What do you like and dislike about your current job? And do you have the ability to change those dislikes? The third step would be, why are you staying? Why are you in your current role? Answer that question. And the fourth would be the opposite of that. So why not? Why not make a change? Why not? And the fifth step would be, what's your end game? If I work with a lot of people who will call me or I engage with them and they're like, I need a new job like tomorrow. Well, guess what? It's a lot of work. And let me also share this step for you to be an entrepreneur, right? You're never off, Chrissy. I'm never off. We're always on. But that's also what drives us. And, you need to build a plan with the end in mind. And in closing, Chrissy, for anyone who's considering a career change, a career pivot, whether it be COVID related or something that's been in the back of their mind for a while now, what advice would you have to share?
Do it. Be fearless. The worst thing that could happen is you get fired. And trust me, that's not the worst thing that could happen. It may actually be the best thing that happens. And something that I really live by is the only consistency in life is change. And so if you're not continuously growing or changing, then you become complacent. And then your self-worth really, gets dampened, and there may be some, issues with that. And so I would just say, be fearless. And the worst thing that could happen is you get fired. And maybe that's not even the worst thing that could happen.
Exactly. I've worked with, in closing, a lot of folks who said, I have been terminated involuntarily. It's the best thing that ever happened because it gave you that push to really do what you really want to do. And so I would encourage you this week to really take a step back and say, why not? And jot down those values and think about what really invigorates you. And do you have that in your current role? So thank you so much, Chrissy, for sharing your story. I think it was very valuable to me, and certainly I'll be able to share some of your experiences with some future folks. So again, thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, it's interesting to be in the interview week, you know what I mean? Because I'm always interviewing, or I'm always behind the scenes and all of that. And so sitting in the seat is a little uncomfortable for me. So
the opposite. And before we close, can you share with the folks listening your website if they want to check out your new endeavor, or how they could reach out to you as well?
So a couple of things. So I'm an entrepreneur, but my core business is kitschy wearable art. And, if for some reason you are exploring, you're like, I have a picture that I want to put in a necklace or some sort of accessory, you can go ahead and we can make that happen for you. And then also I have it kind of hidden on my website. So I'm not, in 5 different places at once and trying to purchase domain names and all that good stuff. But I do live streaming. So I am still doing the journalistic host in me, and I am helping others feel comfortable in this space and really engage and reach out to people during this time when it's so hard to create that environment in person. And so if anyone needs any help with live streaming, I'd be more than happy to chat with you a little bit about your goals and expectations.
Great. Thank you very much. And as always, if I can lend a hand to you as an individual or as an organization, feel free to reach out to me. My email is jshore@careerdevelopmentadvisors.net, or my website is careerdevelopmentadvisors.net. So I hope you all have a great rest of the week. Make sure you do those 5 things: assess your values, figure out what you like and don't like in your current job, think about why you can make a change, think about why not, what's the worst thing that can happen, as Chrissy said, and set your end date. Challenge yourself with an end date and build a plan with the end.
I always learn something during Next Step Wednesdays. I hope so. To me, Julie.
I hope so. I want it to be valuable because everyone's time is valuable. Everyone's time is valuable. So thank you again, Chrissy. I hope everyone has a great rest of the week.
Bye.
Bye.